Okay, so welcome to part 2 of learning JWT of the PERN stack by building a login and register route. So what we are currently going to be doing is that we are going to see how our React application is going to interact with our JWT token. So what we're going to be covering in this video or in this section is we're going to see how we can store that JWT token and how we can take that JWT token, put it with our fetch request, and be able to access private data. Now, if you haven't watched part 1, I highly recommend it because it goes over how we build a RESTful API with JWT. All right, so let's just kind of go into this. So if you have not already, I did npx create React app client within our root in order to create this client folder, which is going to be our React application. Okay. So I also want to mention that I want to go over the end code because I don't want you guys to get overwhelmed when we write this code by scratch. So when we start coding from scratch, you'll start adding things together and it'll start to make a lot more sense. So let's go to our demo code really quick. I'm going to open it up and I'm going to give you guys a brief explanation of what this whole component is going to do and how we're going to put it together. So as you can see, we have our single app.js file over here. And what it's going to do is that it has React Router DOM, which is going to show what type of, well, depending on what we specify, what type of component we want to show. So in this case, the only components that we have is dashboard, login, and register. So these are the components that you just saw within the demo if you haven't seen the first video. So inside here, if you look very carefully, this is probably the most important aspect of the code because it's our single state that's going to determine whether or not a user is authenticated or not authenticated. And by default, it's going to be set to false. All right. Now, by using this thing over here, it is going to be used as our logic to determine whether or not a person can access a certain route. So for example, in this case, if a person is not authenticated, then it can continue on with the login route. But if they are already authenticated, then we're going to redirect back to /dashboard. Okay? And likewise, for the dashboard, if a person is authenticated, we are going to redirect to the dashboard. But if they're not, then we're going to redirect back to /login. All right, so pretty straightforward, nothing too complex. Now, like I said again, I am not going to touch anything about state managements, so I'm talking about Redux or Context API. And the reason I say that is because I find that JWT, authentication, and authorization by itself are pretty difficult topics by themselves. So I didn't really want to make it over complex of when we're building this application. All right. So anyway, let's go through each of these little components and just understand what they're doing. So if we look into our login, which is very similar to register, you can see that we have this basic form that's going to take in our data, and then we're going to package our data, our email and password, and we're going to send it to our endpoint that we created within our RESTful API. So what it's going to do, it's going to stringify that body, it's going to send the data, and if it ends up being successful, as you can see here, it's going to parse it, and then we're going to get our JWT token. So if it does exist, we're going to set our local storage.set item. We're going to name it as token, and then we're going to set that value to the token that we got from our RESTful API. And then as a result, we're going to say set off equals to true. And I have to say that this is a props that's being sent from the app.js, so the parent component. So this is going to turn on and off of whether or not the state is going to be true or false. And then also we're just going to run React-Toastify, which is going to be our notification. And register, like I said, is pretty much the same. So we can just kind of jump into dashboard. Now, dashboard has two special things. Inside here, when we get into this component, we are going to automatically make requests to our dashboard. So remember, we create a route called dashboard. And essentially what we all have to do, well, actually, I'm not sure why this is a post request because we're not adding data. It actually should be a get request. But the big idea is that we're going to be sending a header with our JWT token, and it's going to contain local storage.token. And by doing so, we'll be able to have access to our private data if it is valid. Okay. And you can see here that we set the name state. Let's go up here. We set the name state right here to whatever we get back here. And then we can finally display it right there. And then, of course, if we click this button of log out, what it's going to do is it's going to remove the token from the local storage. And then it's going to set off to false. All right. And then, of course, you have that React-Toastify, which is going to run that notification. All right. So pretty simple application. So in the next section, we're just going to get our client side all set up and ready to go. Okay, so I officially downloaded all my client folder, so it's completed. So we're just gonna make a quick setup before we start coding. So I'm gonna go to my SRC folder and I'm just gonna delete a few things. So I'm gonna delete this thing over here. Let me just mute that really quick. I'll delete the logo because we don't need that. Service worker, setup test. And we're gonna also go into, well, actually, before we even start doing this, let's actually start our stuff already. So I'm gonna cd and I am going to npm start. So while I wait that to load, I'm just gonna start cleaning up still. So I'm gonna get rid of this logo. I'm also gonna get rid of all this header. And you know what? I think I might as well just get a fragment too while I'm at it. And I'll just put it right between here. All right. And then finally, I'm gonna go into my index.js and I'm just gonna get rid of this service worker again, along with the comments to make it a lot more clear. All right, okay, so I think the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our public folder, and what we're going to need is some bootstrap, just to make it a little bit better for styling. So I'm going to get rid of this, along with this. Gotta get rid of all of it. This one as well. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right here. So I already have bootstrap that's already prepared. Go to the bootstrap website, and then you can just simply take in the link. I don't think we're going to need the script stuff because all we're doing is just styling. So I'm going to go inside here and I'm just going to put it on the top. All right. Okay, so we're just going to wait for this thing to load still. So while we have this all set up, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a folder called components. And inside this component folder, we're going to create a login component. And then we're going to create a register. .js, and then we're also going to make, okay, there we go, it's starting to work now. And then we're going to make a new file called dashboard.js. All right. So while this thing is loading, we'll just kind of see whether or not there's going to be any errors that pops up. Besides that, there is also a few things that we're going to need to download. So open a new little terminal for yourself, and then we're going to cd the client. And I think the only two libraries we need is npm install. We're going to do React Router DOM, and then we're going to also do React-Toastify. All right, and that's pretty much all we need. Okay, so when this thing finishes loading, I'll see you guys in the next section, and we'll start coding our components. So I'll see you then. Okay, so let's get started programming this application. So first things first, we're going to get this React Router DOM started. So inside here, I'm going to say import, and I'm going to get React Router DOM. Inside here, I'm going to require four things. I'm going to take browser router. Oops, let's not delete that as well. So browser router, and I just want to name it simpler, so I'm just going to call it router. And then I'm also going to need the switch, the route, and the redirect. Okay, so now that we have this down, I think it's a good time to kind of build some basic components for these things. So I'm going to go inside to my dashboard, and I'm just going to simply say const dashboard. Well, we also have to import the library too, so import React from React. And then we're going to simply say const dashboard return. And I'm also going to take in a fragment to get everything all put together. And I'm going to put my fragment right in there. I'm going to say h1 dashboard. All right, okay, so pretty simple. And then I'm just going to simply say export default dashboard. All right, and just to make our process a little faster, I'm just going to put this in all of the other ones as well. And then a neat trick you can do is you can say Control D, Control D, Control D, and it will get all the ones that are similar to each other. So you can delete all of this and write login. And then you can go into register, do the same procedure of Control D, Control D, Control D, and then put in register. That doesn't look right. I guess I did spell it right. Okay, never mind. Okay, so we have our basic components over there, and now we're going to go inside back into our app.js, and we're going to take those components. So I'm going to say component, and I'm going to say import dashboard from / components and dashboard. And then I'm going to go inside here. I'm just going to copy this one again, and I'm just going to paste it a few more times. And inside here, we're going to get login. And also inside here, we're going to just get registered. All right. So pretty straightforward. So now we're going to start using React Router DOM. So inside here, the first thing we need to have is the router. Now inside this router, we're going to have the switch statements. And this is going to help us switch depending on what type of components we want. And inside there, and you know what? I might as well set a container while I'm at it. So I'll just do that. And I'll put the switch statement inside there. So we can add a little bit more spacing between them. Inside, I am going to add my different types of routes. So I'll just simply say route exact. The reason why exact is important is because it prevents clashing with the URIs or the URLs. So path is going to be login, and I am going to close this for now. Let me just get all of these things prepped up for ourselves. All right. So this is going to contain a register, and this right here is going to contain a dashboard. All right. Now this is where it gets a lot of people. But not a lot of people know the difference between component props and render props, right? It can be a little bit confusing, especially when you read the documentation. But one of the biggest reasons of why I'm using the render prop, which you're going to see right there, instead of the component prop, is because anytime I'm sending props or passing props to a component, I don't want it to remount. So render is perfect for that type of situation. So just remember that. Now inside here, I'm going to put my props inside here, and I'm going to pass it to my component login, and then I'm going to pass all that props inside there, right? So I'm just going to simply do ... props, get all the data, and that's all I have to do. And I'm just going to take this whole entire line, and I'm just going to spit it inside here. All right. Register, and then finally dashboard. Okay, so let's see if this works for us and we didn't get any errors. So that's looking okay. So we go over here. So let's go into /login. You're going to see that we get the login page. And if I go inside to register, for example, we get registered. And then finally, if we go inside here, we got dashboard. And I think since we're already here, I think I might as well just start creating the state. So let's just go up here and get use state. We're going to use React hooks in this application. And right under our functional component over there, I'm going to say const is authenticated. So this is going to be our state. And then I'm going to use set is authenticated as the way to change our state. Okay. And then I'm going to use state to set a default value of false, right? Because in the beginning, we want to make sure our user is false. They're unauthenticated. Okay. Now I'm going to show you guys a few of the logics we can do to use these states. So remember how we're passing the props to the login? Well, we can use a ternary option, or sorry, not option, a ternary operator that's going to allow us to check whether or not the person is authenticated. And if they are, then it's going to either redirect them somewhere else. So let me show you what I mean. So since this thing is automatically set to false, I can just simply say if the person is not authenticated, then I'm going to return this login component over there. But if they do end up being authenticated, then we're going to have to redirect to /dashboard. Okay, hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. All right, and we're going to apply the same exact idea over here as well. And keep in mind the redirect is coming from our React Router DOM. Okay, so inside here, I'm going to apply the same exact idea and question mark, and then we're also going to do another redirect. And this time, I'm just going to redirect back to /login. Finally, we are at our last point over here. And what I want to do, instead of just saying not authenticated, what we want to check is whether or not the person is authenticated. So if they are unauthenticated, we're going to just show them the dashboard. Otherwise, if it turns out that they aren't, we're just going to simply redirect to the login page. All right, so let's test this out now. So now you can see we redirect automatically back to login. So if I try to go to dashboard now, it's going to redirect me back into login because I'm not authenticated. right? So just to give you guys a little example of what we're going to be doing throughout this application, I am going to make a function that's going to toggle true and false. So let me show you really quick. So I'll say const set off. So this is going to be our little mini function we're going to be passing through each of these components. And inside there, it's going to hold an argument called boolean. This boolean, remember, this is the only way to set the state. So I'm going to say set is authenticated, and I'm going to set it to the boolean. And you'll see really soon of why I need to use this. So now I want to pass this little function over there to each of these components. So I'm going to go below here, and I'm going to go over to login, and I'm going to pass this. I'm going to pass set off, and I'm going to set that to the function we created, which is also set off. Okay, and I'm going to apply it to every single one of them. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to apply it to the register component, and I'm also going to apply it to the dashboard component. Alright. So it seems like everything is working pretty well, and we're just going to do a little sample. So I'm going to go inside my login over here. I'm going to take that props that I passed inside there. Remember, it's called set off, and just to kind of show you guys what I mean, if I create a button that says login, or let's say authenticate, just to keep it pretty consistent, if I say onClick, I can take in that function, so set off, and then I can set it to true, because remember, it takes a boolean as an argument. So I can just set this to true, and now check this out. If I go back into my application, it has this little button over here that's going to say authenticate. So if I click on that, you're going to see, since I'm authenticated, it's going to redirect me to the dashboard. And likewise, if I go into the dashboard over here, I can set a button that's going to log out. So remember, I passed that prop, so set off. And then I'm just going to simply make a button over here that's going to say log out. So this is kind of the basic idea of what we're going to apply for each one of these things. And it's going to say set off, and we're going to set it to, as you guessed it, false. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen. So it's refreshing, so I can authenticate, and I can also log out. So that was pretty simple. Now you may start to notice that even if I authenticate and I refresh, it's going to get me back into login. Because remember when I said in the last application is that anytime you're refreshing like your application, it's going to reset the state. So what we're going to later on do is that inside our app.js, we're going to be using something called a use effect, which is consistently going to make requests every time it's re-rendered in order to guarantee or make sure the person is authenticated or not. All right, so in the next section, we are going to start building the form for login. Well, actually, no, register. So I'll see you guys in the next section. All right, so let's start building our register component. We're going to make this nice and quick. So we're going to have the use state because we're going to eventually collect state. Now inside here, I'm going to have a simple form tag, and I'm going to get rid of the actions. And the three things we're going to have is input. Oh my God, what is that? Nope, we're going to have an input with a type of email, and the name is also going to be email. All right. And I think we might as well add a placeholder inside here as well. So I'll just do that really quick. Right here, I'm just going to take this whole entire input and I'm going to repeat it 2 more times. So this one, we can just simply do Control D 3 times and we can just change it all to password. As for this one though, we can't change it all together because this is going to be a type of text. And then this right here, we can change it to name. All right. So let's see what that looks like so far. So very disgusting. So what we're going to have to do is make it a little bit better with Bootstrap. Class name right here, and what we're going to add is just form control. And I already know in form control it's going to make everything smushed together, so I'm going to add a margin Y of 3. Okay, and I'm also going to take this thing right here, and I'm going to apply it to all the other inputs. All right, so let's do that. So let's see what this looks like. And I just realized I totally forgot a button, so let's just go down here really quick, and we're going to make a button that's called and it's going to have a class name of BTN success, and BTN block. All right. Alrighty, that should be loading pretty soon. Okay, that looks good. And then finally, our last design is going to be class name, which is going to be text center, and then we're going to add a margin y of 5. Or, yeah, margin y of 5 looks pretty good to me. All right, so that looks pretty good. So the only thing we have to do left is kind of collect the state from these forms. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say const inputs. So this is going to collect all our inputs. Then I'm going to say set inputs, and I'm going to set default value to this. So it's going to contain the email, which is going to be an empty string, and that's including password and name as well. All right. Once we have this down, we are able to destructure this thing. So I can just simply say email, password, name, and then I could destructure it from the inputs over there. So now if we look over here, so if you worked with any React application and you worked with forms, you'll understand that you need two aspects. You need to have the values and you need to have the onChange. So right here, when I set the value to email, for example, and I set this to email, and let's say I give the email default value of pig. Right, so if I refresh that, pig should pop up over there. You see that? All right, but we don't want to have pigs. And the thing is that when we change it, or we attempt to change it, or backspace, we're not going to be able to change it because we don't have an onChange. So we're going to go down here and make an onChange function. So I'm going to say const onChange. It's going to take an event, and it's going to be utilizing this set inputs over there. So we're going to take the set inputs, and we're going to take every inputs, because we don't want to change everything, and whatever we target at, we're going to say e.target.name. So we're going to take the name of the value from this form. See that? And then we're going to set it to whatever value that's been specified within that input. All right, so now that we have this, we can just simply put our onChange over here, and everything should start functioning correctly. I'm going to set it to E, which is going to be onChange to E. All right. So now, if we look over here, this thing should start changing. So you still see it's pig, but now I can say pig again, and I can delete all of it. So at the meantime, I'm just going to get rid of all of this. And I'm going to apply this to every single input that I have here. So I'll apply it to here. And I'll also apply it here so I can add some values. And don't forget to change the values because you don't want to change just the email state. In this case, you want to change password. And also for this one, you want to be able to change the name. Okay, so that was pretty simple. Okay, let's see. Besides that, the last thing we need to do is create it on submit. So we are going to need to make a submit to our RESTful API in order to get that JWT token. Okay. So I'm going to go create a function called const onSubmitForm, and I'm going to set that to a E, and it's going to say ePreventDefault. Now the reason why this is super important is because when I click submit, by default it's going to refresh, but by doing this, it's going to prevent me from refreshing this page. And of course, I'm going to use my async over here, so I'm going to say try catch, just to keep it a lot more organized. And I'm just simply going to do console.error, error.message. All right. Okay, so once we have this thing down, I am going to connect it to my form. So on submit, and I'm going to connect it to onSubmitForm. And let's see if we get any errors. So I'm just going to go back over here. Just make sure we don't get any errors. Okay, so everything's working. So the last thing we need to do is we need to make a fetch request. So I'm going to go into my try block, and I'm going to say const response is going to equal to await, because it's going to take some time, fetch, and then we're going to try to hit HTTP. Oh, you know what I just realized? I think it makes more sense if we actually turn on our RESTful API. So let's go inside here and let's start turning this thing on. So npm or nodemon server. All right, let's just wait for this thing to load over, and then I'll just start putting the fetch inside there. So while this thing's loading, I'm just going to try to get this thing popped up. So I'm going to go over here and get the JWT off, and I'm going to put this on the side. Let's see if I can find it. All right, so remember, we're trying to hit this route over here. And if you look into our index.js, you're going to know that we have a /off. So we're going to see http//localhost 5000. We're going to say /off, and we're also going to go to register. All right? And remember, by default, fetch does a GET request. So we have to do a few more configurations to say that it's actually a lot more than just a simple GET request. So the method in this case is going to be a post. Also, we have to specify the header, which is going to be content type. And we are going to set this to application/JSON. Now, I totally forgot whether or not this should be a capitalized T or lowercase t, but we'll experiment with this. Now, I'm going to go inside here, and I'm going to set my body up. Now, the thing is that this is where we're going to start packaging our response. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say const body, and what I'm going to put inside is my email, password, and it's going to be my name as well. And this is all coming from the state. Right? So I'm going to put it inside there, and then I'm going to be able to pass it with this body over here. Now the thing is that I can't just simply put body. I actually also have to say json.stringify, and then I can put the body inside there. All right, so we're all ready to go. And keep in mind that when we get a response back, the data we're getting back is going to be JSON, so we need to be able to parse it so we can utilize the information. So if that's the case, what we're going to do is say const parse response, and I'm going to say response. Well, also it's going to take some time. So await response.json. So this is going to convert it. It's going to parse it for us, and then we'll be able to utilize the data. So if I do console.log parse res, we're going to see in our console what's going to be happening. So let's put this aside. I'm going to open my console really quick. All right. I'm going to clear this thing up. Okay, so let's just kind of hope everything ends up working. So I'm just going to use hello, let's just say hello at yahoo.com. Okay, and I'll just use a simple password of kthl8822, and then I'll just say hello. So if everything works out well, we should get a JWT token, but if it doesn't, then we'll just kind of debug and see what the error is. Submit. Oh, look at that, we get a token. So that's cool. And you can see the logic over here is that we were able to get a person saved in our database, and as a result, we got a token back. So this is great. Okay. Well, usually it doesn't work on the first try, so okay, that saves a lot of time. All right, so anyway, let's kind of continue with this process. So we have a JWT token. So the next step to doing so is setting it to our local storage. All right, so let's go over here. Right, we don't want to simply just do console.log. We want to be able to do two things. We want to save it within our local storage, and we also want to be able to use that setoff function that we pass to each component. So remember this little setoff over there, and we want to set it to true, so it will be able to redirect us to the dashboard. Okay, so let's go back inside here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to continue taking this. I'm just going to get rid of this thing real here. Remember, it's a parse res, so we could just have to take in that token over there. So let me just open this thing up again. Okay, so there it is. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to say local storage, and I'm going to say set item. Right? Because we're going to be setting items over there. I'm going to name it token, and all we have to do to set the value for that token is going to be parse res, and it's going to be dot. Okay, what do we name this as? We named it as token. Okay, so I'm going to do dot token because it's an object. All right, and now after we set the token, now we want to simply use that props that we sent over there. So I'm going to go inside. I'm going to say this is going to be from set off. So remember, we passed this function props. Now I can go down here, and what I can simply do is just say set off to true. All right, so let's see what happens. So if we go inside here and we put a new user inside, so new user at gmail.com. So, and I could just put user, and we click submit. what's going to happen, and I'm going to open this thing up. Hopefully this does work. So I cleared my value. If I click submit, look at that. Cool. So we get our token. We also are able to save our JWT token. Ooh, no, I don't want that. And look, we go to the dashboard. So this is actually pretty great. And if we try to go back into login, you're going to see, oh, sorry, it's still going to go back to login. That's because I forgot to tell you guys that if you refresh the page, it's going to automatically reset the state. But otherwise, what you can see here is that we were able to successfully set our token inside our local storage, and then we were able to redirect, or based on the states, we were able to redirect to the dashboard. So that's pretty cool. So in the next section, we're going to be working on the login routes, which is not too much different from this route. So I'll see you guys then. Alright, so let's work on the login route. And like I said, it's no much different from the login, or sorry, for the register component. So let's do that really quick. We're going to go inside here, and instead of actually having this button, I'm going to take this out because that's not what it's going to look like. And inside here, I am going to take in a few things. Oops. Again, I have to take the use state. And I'm just going to make another simple form. So this should look very repetitive like the last application, but I just kind of want to do it with you guys so you guys can have some good practice. So remember, all we're going to have is just the email. We're going to have a name of email, and we're also going to have a placeholder that's going to be email. All right. Now I'm going to take this over here. I'm going to put it down here, and the last thing we're going to need is the password. All right. And then, of course, we're going to apply some stylings to this thing. So I'm going to do form control. And then again, I'm going to say margin y3. And I'm going to apply the same exact class to this form. To this input. All right, so let's see what that looks like. So I'm just going to open it again. We're in /login now, and you can see that we have this thing that's popping up. And we're going to do the same procedure. Sorry, let me just get all of these things out of the way. All right. Come on. Oh, where is it at now? Okay. Okay, so now that I have this thing set up over here, I'm going to add a button. Submit. And it's going to have a class name, btn success, and btn block. All right. And we're going to see this thing pop over here. Then we're going to add a class name for this thing as text center. And we're going to see margin y of 5. Right, so it looks exactly like our register component. Right, so now we're just going to React-Ify this now. So again, once again on the top, I'm going to say const inputs, set inputs, and I'm going to set this to use state, which is going to be the result of email, which is going to be an empty string. And then we're going to have password, which is also going to be an empty string. Again, we're going to destructure this thing. Email, password, and that's going to be coming from the inputs over there. And then once again, we need to have the onChange function. So I'm going to say const onChange. There we go. And we're just going to simply take that set inputs over there. And then we're going to do ... inputs. And then we're going to run that e.target name. And then we're going to spit out the e.target value. Okay, so hopefully this looks very familiar than like our last application or our last component. Now all I have to do is I could go inside here and just apply it. So I'm just going to say value is email, and then I'm going to simply do a onChange, which is again going to be our onChange function. All right, and don't forget to pass in that event. Okay. Then I'm going to take this thing over here, and I'm going to apply it right here as well. And this is going to be, oops, I just realized I put these as strings, so you want to make sure that these things are in brackets. So it's going to take an email, and this one right here is going to take in password. All right, so pretty simple, and we're just going to double check that everything works over here. So, yep, indeed, I can add some data over here. It's awesome. Is next on our list? Well, we have to do the onSubmit stuff as well. So we'll say const onSubmit form. And that is going to be the result of taking in an event. And remember, we want to do e.prevent default, so we don't want this thing to refresh. And then we're going to use the try catch statement, which I have to specify over here, async. So it's going to take an error. And we're just going to simply say console.error, error.message. And what else is there? Yes, and then we have to say const response, because remember, we're going to make a response to our other route. So it's going to say wait fetch. And let's just kind of get to the site again so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So let's go over here, JWT off. I'm going to put it to the side. And once again, we are going to aim for http://localhost. Oh, let me just get this up for you guys. Where is it at? There it is. And it's going to be 5000 off and then login. All right. And remember, fetch does a GET request, so we need to configure this. So method is going to be a POST request. Our headers is going to be the result of content type, and that's going to lead into application/JSON. Right? And then finally, we have the body that we have to package up all together. So that's going to be const body, which is going to take in the email, password, that's all. And then we're going to stringify it, put it into one paste. So I'm going to go inside here, set the body, which is going to equal to, hope I did that right. So JSON.stringify, and take in the body. All right. And then once again, we're going to get some data back. So what we're going to do is we're going to say const parse res, because we're getting JSON data. So we want to make sure we parse it, await response.json. And then just to make sure that everything's working, I'm just going to console.log parse res. So it's always good to just double check whether or not our application's working or not. So I'm going to close this over here. And let's try to get a user. You know what? I think we can use the same exact user we made last time. So I'm going to open my command line, and we're just going to move into there. So you can join me in this process. So I'm going to say psql-u postgres kthl 8822 /c into JWT tutorial, or whatever you named it as. Select all from users. Okay, so wow, that's a lot of users. So yeah, because we did a lot of testing, or at least I did. X on, and then I'm going to say the same thing. Okay, so what was the last user that we put inside there? You know what? You know, it'd be actually even better. Maybe we should actually use the register route, and then we can log in with that same user to see if both routes works. So I think that's a better idea. So I'm going to go inside here to my register, and we're going to later on add links to connect to each other. Yeah, let's do that right now, actually. Let's not delay that. It's actually pretty easy to do anyway. So I'm just going to go up here, and I'm going to import from React router DOM and make sure that's lowercase. And I'm going to take in a simple link. Right, and this link is going to guide us back to the register route. All right, so I'm going to go inside here. And where should I put it at? I'm going to put it right at the bottom of this form. It's going to say link. And it's going to go to /register. So if the person doesn't have an account yet, then they'll click on this link. Ooh, my dogs are barking. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to go back into the register really quick. Apply the same exact link over here. And I'm going to put the link inside. And this one is going to be changed into login. Okay. So I'm going to go inside here, change this to login. All right, so let's see if this thing does end up working for us. So I'm just going to go back and forth. So register. All right, and we are going to go into login. All right, so let's first make a very unique user. So I'm going to say user, just so I can remember, 123@gmail.com. And then I'm going to say, I don't know, like 123. I didn't really put any insane criteria, so we're just going to say 123. And I'll call myself 123 as well. So if I submit this data over here, we should get a data. Okay, cool. So that's working out for us. And then let's just kind of clear a token. And then you can see that we're going to go back into the login. And we're going to use that same exact user, 123@gmail.com. Okay, so let's hope that things end up working inside our console. And I'm going to put in 1, 2, 3, and we're going to click submit. So do we get a token back? Oops. Okay, something went wrong. So it seems like our user was actually created. So that's great. But it refreshed. So that means we did something a little bit wrong with the refresh process. So I'm going to go inside here and just check out what we did. So we have this onSubmit form. Oh, I get it. The reason this is because we did not connect it with our form yet. So that wouldn't make sense. So onSubmit. Well, this is a little bit strange then. But anyway, I'm just going to go inside here and I'm going to say onSubmit form. So don't forget to put it connected inside there. And now everything should start functioning. Right? So remember we created a user like that. So that user was created from a register process, and now we're going to apply it right here. So fingers crossed again, 1, 2, 3. Now if I click submit, I get a token. Awesome. And you're going to also see that since I cleared it out, I should be getting a token. Oh, well, that's because we haven't set the local storage quite yet. Okay, so let's quickly do that and just start doing the same process. So I'm going to go inside here, and what was I going to do? Where am I at? Oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this console.log since we already know it works. We're going to go say local storage dot set token or set item, and then we're going to name it as token to keep it consistent, and we're going to say parse res because remember that's the object, and then we're going to simply use the token data. And then finally we're going to use that functional props that we set, and we're going to set this to true as well. All right, so let's see if it works. So I'm going to say 123@gmail.com, and then I'm going to put in 123, and we should be going into the dashboard. So great. So everything is working as planned for the login and register section. So what we're going to be working on next is the dashboard section. So I'll see you guys then. All right, so let's work on the dashboard component. And it's really, like I said again, it's not much different. It's actually probably a little bit easier than both login and register. So what we're going to need is a few things. We're going to need to have use state because we are going to collect some states. And we are also wanting to use effect. All right, and you guys are going to see very soon why we need these things. And we're also going to get rid of this because this is not how our logout button is going to function like. All right, so the thing is that when the person does end up getting into their dashboard, we want to be able to automatically get their data, give it back whether or not their token is valid, right? So we want to be able to show their name. So if you haven't seen the demo, basically it's going to display a dashboard along with their names. Okay, so let me just kind of prep this up. You're going to see that it's going to say const name, then we're going to have set name, and that's going to be the result of use state. And this is going to be entered by the data we get back. So this is kind of why we need to get use effect. Here, I'm going to say use effect. So we're going to make a request when we hit this component, and I'm just going to call this get name. That's our function, and I'm going to define it right here. So we're going to call this function get name. Make sure this is async, and you know what? Nah, I'll just keep it this way. Yeah, so async function get name, and then inside here I'm going to do a simple try catch. So this is where things get a little bit interesting. So inside here, I'm going to say const response. So what I'm going to go for is await, fetch, and let me just show you guys again of what the route I'm trying to aim for. So inside here, it should be somewhere inside the dashboard, sorry. So the dashboard, this is what we're trying to aim for. So what we're actually going to be hitting at is http://localhost 5000 member/dashboard and then slash, right? And we're getting data right here. So that means we're not passing anything with request.body, but we are going to need to configure like what type of data we're like, what's going to be the header, right? So I'll just say method is going to continue to be a get request, even though by default it is. And now this is the important part. So remember how I said this JWT token is going to be checked by our application to see whether or not it's valid. So we're going to say headers, and inside here we are going to pass our token, okay? And inside our token we're going to pass in local storage, because because remember, our stuff is saved inside the local storage. Oh no, what just happened? And we're going to say token. Right? So that's all we have to do, right? Because this is coming from the token over there. And if you didn't remember, if we look inside our middleware, you're going to see that what we're trying to get from the header is going to be that token over there. So hopefully this kind of makes a little bit more sense, hopefully clicking in. Right? So if we get this correctly, we're going to be able to get our data back. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say console.log. Oops, and I have to parse the data as well, of course. So I'm going to say const parse res, which is going to be await response dot JSON. We're going to parse the data and we're going to console.log what we get in return, right? And if it turns out to be correct, we are just going to simply get our name back. So let me get over here. So if everything works out well and we pass the authorization step, then we'll be able to access our name. All right, so we're going to see that real soon. Oops, so this is a little messy. Oh no. Okay, so you guys are seeing a little bit of my editing software, so yeah, okay, anyway, that's okay. Anyway, if we go inside here, we're going to submit our data, so let's just clear this up again. And we are going to put that user again, so 123@gmail.com. And then we're going to say 123. And if we click submit, let's see what we get inside our console, because we are able to make that token. Look at that, we get our name over there. So remember we set our name as username 123. So now what we are able to do is we can set that value within our namestate. So once everything successfully works, I'm just going to simply do this. I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to say set name, and let's just kind of look at this one more time. So it's an object, so we're going to say set name equals to res dot and user name. I have a short-term memory, so I got to keep checking it to make sure I got it right. All right, so now that we have that state over here, then we can simply go down here and just put that name right there. So I can just simply display a name inside. So let's see if it works for us. So if I refresh this page over here, it's going to go back into login. And don't worry, we're going to fix this issue later on. But now, as you can see, we're going to clear this token right there. And I'm going to use this user one more time. And it's going to say, hello, 123. Cool. Awesome. So that's going to be our private route right there. All right, so everything seems to be working pretty well. And I guess the next thing we should start working on is the logout. So right under here, I'm going to have a button that's going to say logout. And it is going to have a, let's just decorate this a little bit while we're at it. It's going to be a BTN and BTN primary. Now, if I look into it, I think that should do the job. So anyway, I can access this now. Wait, no, I can't. Because the thing is, remember, we have that state that's being set, so we have to go through this process consistently. So you can see we have a logout button. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to clear out the local storage. Okay, so I'm going to make a function that's going to say onClick. So whenever this thing is going to be clicked, it's going to run E, and it's going to say logout. So I'm going to create that right here. So I'm going to create this logout function. I'll just do an error function. So it's going to be const logout. I'm going to take in that E over there. Oh my god, today's just not my day when it comes to typing. Okay, and then I'm also going to, I don't think I need to make this async. But anyway, I'm going to say E prevent default, right? Because I don't want this thing to refreshed in any way. And I'm going to go to the local storage. And I'm going to say remove item, and I'm going to remove that token over there, right? Because we don't want that token to show anymore. And then I'm going to set off to false. Okay, so let's see how this is going to work for us. Okay, so let's go back inside here. Let's log in one more time. And then let's go 123. So if I submit the data, I go to dashboard 123, so I get my access to it. And then if I log out, it should bring me back inside here. Okay, so there seems to be a problem inside there. So there's something with the E prevent default. It's because I'm not passing an E inside there. So that's very important. So now things should actually start getting started. So we got to do this one more time. So this is kind of the big reason why I say that we need to have a use effect in the app component so we can keep making requests even if we refresh. So now if I log out, we go back into login. Okay, so there's the basic functionality. So we're going to do pretty much our last set of important coding. So in the next section, we're going to go to the app.js file, and we're going to make a use effect. We're going to be running a function whenever the page is going to be refreshed, so we don't have to consistently keep like restarting our application and trying it out. I'll see you guys. So just after I close this video, I just totally forgot that it's really important that you guys add a bracket. The reason for that is because use effect makes a lot of requests, and the thing is that we just want to make one simple request. So by adding this bracket, it is going to make one request when this component is rendered. Okay, so keep that in mind. So when we go into app.js, we are also going to need a use effect because we want to run a function that is going to check whether or not our JWT token is valid, and it's going to continue to bring us to that dashboard if we are authenticated. So let me explain to you why we even need this. Because obviously, if you look inside here, we have our token, which is completely valid, but yet we're still inside this login component. And that's a problem because the thing is that when we refresh our application, it is going to reset our state. And remember, our state by default is going to be set to false. And if it's set to false, we'll never be able to access that dashboard. So by ensuring that we refresh the page and using that use effect, it's going to double check whether or not this token is valid, and then it's going to set is authenticated to true. So I'm going to go inside here really quick, and I'm going to just open this thing up, and we're just going to get started. So I'm going to put inside my use effects inside, and then I'm going to put it right here. So where can I put it at? Put it right here. And it is going to run, let's see what else it's going to run. It's going to run, let's call it is off, okay? So we're going to say is off. I feel like we already have that though. Yeah, that's called set off. Okay, so that will do. So we're going to call this is off because we want to check whether or not the person is still authenticated. And we're going to write the function right here. So async function is off. And then we are going to put our try catch statement inside. So error console.error error.message. Right. And now what we're going to do is that we want to make a response, or you want to hit this endpoint right there. Remember, this is going to check whether or not this person is still validated. Because as long as it passes this authorization middleware, that means this has to be true. That means the person is verified in some way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say const response equals to await fetch http //localhost 5000 /off and then /is verify. Okay, and by default fetch does a get request, but we still have to configure that it has to have that JWT token. Remember, we can't access this if it fails this authorization middleware. So we need to make sure we pass in that JWT token. So I'm going to say headers, and I'm going to put inside here token, because remember it's going to abstract the token, and then we're going to call this local storage dot token. All right, and that's pretty much all we have to do. And then I could just simply just parse the data as usual. So I'm just going to go up here and I'm going to say parse res. Make sure we say const. So parse res, and we're going to set that to await response, and then we're going to say JSON, right? Because we need to parse the data, and then we're just going to do simple console.log parse res. All right. So now if we look inside here, we should have something. So if I look into my console, I should see true. Hey, look at that, cool. And the reason why we have the true over here is because it turns out that our JWT token is valid. Now, what we need to do with this true statement is that we need to make this no that we're going to set is authenticated back to true. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to run a ternary operator. I'm going to say parse res. So if parse res equals true, then we're going to be doing two things. If it is true, then we're just going to simply say is set is authenticated. No, set is authenticated, and we're going to set that to true. But otherwise, if it turns out that's not, we're going to set is authenticated to false. All right, so let's see what's going to happen with this. So let's put this aside, and look, it's going to bring us back to our dashboard. Elizabeth leave, right? Because it's gaining the data from the private route. And if we log out, we go back into login. So awesome. So everything seems to be working out for us. And let's just try out the register page. So let's call this mr@gmail.com. And I'm just going to say Mr. And if I submit the person inside, we're going to get inside here. And then we can log out. So yeah, everything seems to be working perfectly fine. We built this JWT application. Now, finally, the last step, and this is totally optional if you want to, we're going to apply React-Toastify to add notifications to our React application to make it look a lot more neat. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next section. Yeah, so congratulations, you guys pretty much finished the application. Now, I didn't forget about the React-Toastify, but I just want to show you guys that we have completed this JWT system. So if we click login, you're going to see we get to our dashboard, and if we attempt to go into login now, we are going to be redirected back into the dashboard. And likewise, if I decide to refresh here, we get back into the dashboard still, right? Because the thing is that our JWT token is verified. Now, let's kind of move into React-Toastify so we can make this look a little bit better. So inside our React-Toastify, I have the documentation here. So the big idea is that it allows you to run these nice looking notifications. It's a great library, and you guys can read over it if you guys want to. So head to this website or head to this page over here with me. And then if you look over here, this is the important part that I want you guys to look at. So we're going to apply the same exact idea to our application. So right here, we are going to import Toast from React-Toastify, so very simple. And then we have to import the CSS, so the styling for that notification. And then we have to use something known toast.configured. Now, toast.configured does two things. The idea is that the library will mount a toast container if none is mounted. So essentially, this is creating a toast container for our app application. And then it also allows us to configure like how fast the notification pops up or leaves, and also whether or not it's draggable, right? But those are like more minute things, and we will you guys could definitely check it out later after this tutorial. So we're going to take this thing over here. Well, actually, let's apply these guys. So we're going to import these things, and we're going to put it at the top of our app application. And then we are going to take this toast.configure to create that toast container or toast container for ourselves, put it on top of here, and we're all set and ready to go. So I think one of the first things I want to work on is being able to log in. So if I log in this user, I want to say you logged in successfully. So let's go over here and let's go import this. So we're going to say import toast from React-Toastify. And let's go to the bottom. Now this is going to be following an if and else statements, right? So we're going to check that whether or not the parse res even exists in the first place. So if parse res token does exist, then right off the bat, we're just going to continue on with our procedure. And we're just going to simply say like toast.success logged in successfully. Right? That's simple. And then the thing is that if anything does end up failing, we're going to say else set off to false. And then we're going to say toast.success, .error. So you can see we can apply all these nice things to it. And we're going to use our custom error, which is going to be parse res. Now, if you don't remember, and that's perfectly okay because that was like a long time ago, if we go over here to our JWT off route, let me see if I can get to this side. So we go into our login over here. You're going to see that it's going to throw out password or email is incorrect. So if it does turn out that we have an error, it's going to throw this type of error over here that we specified because it's going to return that. All right. So let's test this thing out. So let's first test out the error. If I decide to put a user that just doesn't simply exist, we're going to see that password or email is incorrect. Okay, but now if I say test@gmail.com, it's going to say login successfully. All right. Cool, and we're ready to go. Okay, so after this, we're going to do this thing over here. Let's see, where is it at? Yeah, so let's go to the register route because it's the same exact concept. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to require toast. React-Toastify. And then I'm going to do the same exact logic over here. So if it turns out we end up having a token, then I'm just going to simply do the regular procedure. If I can find it. Oh, and we actually need this to be in front of it, so let's be careful of that. Okay, now that we have this down here, we're just going to simply say toast.success is going to be the result of registered successfully. Okay, and then we're going to add an else statement for false statement. So what we're going to say is toast.error. So actually, let's say set off to false. And then we're going to say toast.error is going to equal to parse res. Because remember, we have a error that we defined over here. So if you guys look up here now, let's see if I can find it, /register, you're going to see that we're going to throw this error over here. Return res.status for one.send user already exists. Oh, wait a minute, that's not right. That should not be a .send. Yeah, this thing shouldn't be a .send. Actually, we need to change this to JSON or it's not going to work. Okay, so make sure you change it to this. And then we're just going to throw this thing over here. So if we log out, so let's go back into register. Let's first register with a email that already exists. So in this case, mine right here. So if I click submit, it's going to throw to me that user already exists. So that's awesome. And then if I have a new user, which I'll just change it to this, look at that. We get a new user, which is going to be dashboard goes back to Henry. And I think the last thing I want to do is just have an alert for logout. So let's do that. So I'm going to go to my dashboard, do the regular procedure. So import toast from React-Toastify. All right. And then I don't know why I have an error over there. Oh, okay. Sorry, that scared me for a little bit. I was like, another error. Okay, so I'm going to go inside here, and I'm just going to simply put my stuff here. So I'm just going to simply say, I was going to say, toast.error, or not error, it should be a success because you chose to log out. And we're just going to say you logged out successfully. All right, so let's see what's going to happen to there. So if I log out now, you can see we logged out successfully. And of course, you guys can get rid of all these nasty things that we tested. So just to make sure we can just get rid of all of them, let's go into our authorized middleware. And let's just kind of clean this up with all the console.logs. Actually, I don't even know where these things are coming from. Okay, but anyway, we'll definitely check out these errors later on. But the big idea is that we successfully build a JWT system. So if we decide to log in, we can do it successfully. We can log out now. Logged out successfully. If we decide to do like error and we click submit, it's going to tell us that password email is incorrect. And if we try to do someone who already exists, we are going to also get an error that says user already exists. All right, so congratulations, you guys. So in the next section, we're just going to do a quick review. Okay, so I'll see you guys then. All right, so like I said again, congratulations for building this application. Like, I understand JWT is really overwhelming. It can be a little bit complex, but you guys built a JWT with the PERN stack, so that's great. Now, I have to tell you guys that this is far from perfect. Like, there's a lot of things that could be fixed with this thing. Like, for example, like, since you guys already get the concept of JWT, you guys can start to move on to doing some state managements, like using Redux or, for example, Context API, right? Because what I really wanted you guys to get from this end video was understanding how JWT's purpose and how it worked with our applications. Okay, because once you understand that, then it's easy to build applications. Okay, so let's kind of do a little quick overview of what is happening. And we're just going to go through just the JWT part. As you can see here, let's just go back into our server code really quick. Let's go into this part, JWT off. So if you guys remembered, what we did was that when we went through the /login, we went through these procedures of just checking whether or not this user like existed already. And then like if it did exist, then we were going to generate JWT token. And it's also worth mentioning that what we did was that we decrypted the password inside our database so we can ensure it to make it more secure. Okay, and we did that to the register as well. And then if you go inside to is verified, the main reason we made this route was because we wanted to constantly, well, whenever the client side was going to be redirected, we wanted to make sure that we made a request to this route to make sure that it was going to continue to be verified with its token. And therefore, it was going to continue to have access to its dashboard. Okay, so that was quite a mouthful. Now, if we go into dashboard, you can see this is even more simplified. All we're simply doing is that we are providing data with this middleware called authorization. Right? So this authorization here is going to verify whether or not our JWT token is valid, including a signature, right? But if everything ends up working, now we have access to this thing called React-Quest.user, and now we can use that as the ID to find the user and pass it back its name. All right, so let's see what this middleware is going to look like. So if we look into authorization middleware, all it's really going to do, it's going to grab that header, because remember, we're making a fetch request. And then fetch requests, we're going to have a header called token, and we're going to take that token, and we're going to check with the token and the secret of whether or not it is valid. If it turns out to be valid, then we're going to set request.user to the payload.user, because remember, JWT carries a payload. And now, if we want to look at generating the JWT token, very simple still. All we're simply doing is that we have this simple payload over here, and then we're doing this nice method that's provided by the JSON Web Token Library, which is going to take the payload, including the JWT secret and the expiration date. All right, and that's pretty much what goes into the backend, right? So pretty simple. And let's go into our client folder over here. Let's see, what should we start at? Let's start at app.js. So one of the big things I want you guys to understand is that what we did was we created a state that was called isAuthenticated, and it was default set to false. So this was the biggest one that was going to determine which components we were going to be able to see. So if it turned out that we were not authenticated, then it was continued to go to the login and register route. But if we were authenticated, it was going to redirect to the dashboard. And vice versa for the dashboard over here, if it was authenticated, we get to get access to it. And if we were actually not authenticated, we have to redirect back to /login. And all of this was really carried out by using this little action over here that we created called setOff, which essentially set the Boolean of true or false for the state. Okay, and we passed it inside. We passed it inside each of these components to use to set true or false. So again, this is kind of the big reasons why it's great to use Redux, because you don't want to consistently pass props. You want to be able to have one single state that can be shared with all the other components. Okay, now anyway, let's kind of deeper a little bit to our components. So if we look into login or register, you're going to see we did a few nice things. Essentially, we just had a basic form, and inside here, what we did was we made a request to that endpoint off login, and we passed in that body. And in return, we get a JWT token. So we do local storage.set item token to that JWT token, and then we set off to true, which was going to redirect us to the dashboard. Okay. And then if we go into register, it works the same exact way, right? We get a token back, and then we set off to true, which is going to redirect us back to the dashboard. And then the dashboard over here does something really interesting, where now we start utilizing that token. So when we get this component dashboard, what we're going to do is we're going to set our header with that token, local storage.token. So remember, we're saving a token within our local storage, and we're using that. That's going to be passed inside the middleware of a RESTful API. So once we actually verify it, we get our data back, and then we set our name to that name, and we show it right there. Now for logout, which is very simple, all we simply had to do was go to local storage, remove the item token, and then we set off the false, and then we just did this nice looking notification stuff from React-Toastify. And finally, in our app.js, what we did was that we had to consistently make a request every time the page was redirected. Again, remember, anytime your application is being redirected, it's going to restart the state. So it's very important that you use a use effect that's going to allow you to make requests to check whether or not that JWT token continues to be verified. So again, if it turns out to be true, then we're going to set authenticated to true. But if it's false, then we're going to set everything back into false. All right, so yeah, congratulations. It wasn't as complicated as you guys think it was. Everything is perfectly fine. What do you guys want to do from here? So I highly recommend that, like I said again, you guys go through the theory of JWT. There's a nice course from Java Brain, or oh no, I already forgot his name, but I think it was something with Java Brain. And essentially he does a bunch of theoretical courses about JWT. And also, I highly recommend that if you guys were confused within this course, definitely just kind of go over it, review it. I promise you it's going to click, okay? So anyway, congratulations, you guys, and I'll see you guys next time. So bye.